Welcome to Rich Planet TV. I'm Richard D. Hall. In recent months, the UK has seen 3 alleged terrorist attacks. It's a difficult task to get your hands on reliable evidence with regards to these events, especially bearing in mind that mainstream media have a track record of fabricating their narrative and ignoring the best evidence. Here to talk about these events and his latest book is Dr. Nick Colostrom. Welcome, Nick.
Pleasure to be back here, Richard.
Okay, then we are going to come on to your book, which is entitled A European Perspective, Chronicles of False Flag Terrorism. So you focused just on Europe with this book, a little bit on 9/11, but mainly European cases over the last...
That's right, Richard. There are so many books about state terror in America and 9/11 truth and so on, and there's virtually nothing about Europe, what's happening in Europe as such. And I want to create a discourse whereby the different European nations can talk to each other about the way in which fictional, fabricated, phony terror has been perpetrated by unknown international agents in order to destroy freedom and democracy and promote absolute authoritarian government and fear, get everyone living in a state of fear.
Okay. Now, as I said, 3 alleged terrorist attacks in the UK this year, and every time one pops up, I kind of sigh because I think, oh no, I've got to try and get to the bottom of this one, now another one, and then another one. Because the amount of work involved, if you are going to unpick them and get closer to the truth, is a great deal of work, isn't it, Nick?
Yeah. As I say, every state fabricated terror event is an intelligence test to the population. Are you really dumb enough to believe this? And if you are, your life will get worse. For example, right after the Manchester one, we get armed police and military on the streets. That's the latest development.
Well, let me just play devil's advocate then, Nick, because I read a lot of comments on the internet and that kind of thing where they will come back at people like you and say things like, oh, well, you just put them all down to that. They're not all conspiracies. Don't be ridiculous. This one's just as it was described in the media. How can you possibly just immediately claim they are all fabricated or false?
Yeah, I say all the big ones, the big mega events, which immediately have media reporting, media telling you who did it the very same day, practically. Those are the arranged, orchestrated events.
So why are you saying that?
There are. So
let me just interrupt. Sorry, Nick, but let me interrupt because people will get frustrated at you making that claim. Why? Just because it's reported quickly in the media? Is this not just fast media reporting?
Well, that's before the police have had any time to investigate it. We used to have a police force that investigate and look for clues about who might be guilty. And that took a while. And they didn't report who had done it until they'd done that. And now we get trial by media. You get terrific media announcement of who did it, the wicked, evil terrorist. You can't have a court case because the whole thing has been tried and judged in the media immediately after.
Yeah, that is something about the 2 cases that we're going to talk about first, Westminster Bridge and Manchester. The perpetrator's dead, so it means you only get an inquest. And my experience of inquests is there's no real evidence presented. The coroner just reads out a narrative and we're expected to believe it. So there's no trial, there's no testing of any evidence.
And there weren't even any grieving families, the Manchester coroner's event. Not a single grieving family.
So what the legal profession presents after these events occur is an inquest, which is, I would say, a completely flawed way of presenting evidence because there's not 2 sides contesting that evidence.
No, an inquest isn't supposed to be judging who is guilty. It's just looking at the cause of death. That's what it's supposed to do.
Right. So we're left with a wholly inadequate mainstream media, which gives us information, and then I guess we're expected to go to the scene and investigate ourselves. You see, this is the problem for me, is that I would state that at this point in time, I have no opinion on Westminster or Manchester other than I don't trust the mainstream media and I wouldn't trust an inquest. That's my only opinion at this point in time.
Fair enough,
because
Richard.
I haven't done a personal investigation. Now, I have raised an appeal for witnesses focusing on the Manchester event because, as we're going to discuss, a large amount of people were allegedly injured or killed. So
Yeah.
there must be a huge number of witnesses. And I would imagine it should be fairly easy to get to speak to at least some of those witnesses. So that's why I focused on that event.
Fair enough.
We'll come
Fair
on to that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So please don't email me. I'm not prejudging these events. Nick's got his own opinions on them. I need evidence. And if you know anybody who was a first-hand witness, I'm not interested in second-hand witnesses, first-hand witnesses from any of these attacks, but specifically the Manchester event, I'd like to hear from them, because the information I've had so far really is backing up what Nick is going to tell you.
Yeah. Can I say that one of the first things you notice about these kind of events is the funny numbers, which keeps turning up. Manchester, you got a 22-year-old killing 22 people on the 22nd, and that 22nd event is exactly 3 months after the Westminster Bridge, which is on the 22nd, and it was anniversary, get this, of the Lee Rigby event 4 years later. So you always feel that funny numbers are playing, and not only 22 dead, but 119 injured, which is the 9/11 signature. Okay, so you get Manchester 9/11 injured, 22 dead. And you're just aware that funny number games are being played.
He's aged 22. We've got London was on the 22nd, Westminster, Munich 22nd, Brussels 22nd. Well, there was a Glasgow event. I'm not sure if you've included that one though. On the 22nd of the 12th, 15.
Right.
I think that might have been the bin lorry thing.
That's right. Yeah.
Norway,
right. The 22nd.
So okay. So right. Now some people would look at the numerology and just write it off as a coincidence. So there's the two schools of thought. It's a coincidence, or they've been planned and done that way deliberately because they're celebrating certain dates. Because the number 777 seems to come up a lot as well.
7/7. Yeah. Well, that starts with the 9/11 event, which is like the archetypal fabricated event starting off our new millennium, where the planes were AA 77 and 11, the two American Airlines planes.
So let me just ask you then, Nick. Let's just go down the premise that whoever's organising these events is organising them on dates to follow certain numerology.
Yeah.
Are they doing it just to take the piss and have a bit of fun, or is it some darker occult meaning in it?
Well, I suspect the latter, but we'll never know what it is. You know, so I don't want to go too far on funny numbers. Right. You can never predict anything. Nobody who gets into this numerology, I would say, it can never predict anything on the basis of that.
Right, right. All right. Well, we're going to discuss the Westminster briefly, then Manchester, and then we're going to take a look at Nick's book, which looks at many what he claims are false flag terrorist events since 1992 up to the present day in Europe. Right, and there's been a lot. Okay, so I'll put this graphic up on the screen, which just shows the layout of Westminster and the various things that happened. So. Just run us through the sequence of events very briefly as the official story of what's alleged to have happened.
Okay, so this is around the spring equinox. 2 days before, you'd have a terrific drill going on underneath the Westminster Bridge, and then of people being shot and so on. And then you get this event on the 22nd, so it's around the spring equinox, and it's the anniversary of what happened in Brussels a year before, which also, Brussels Airport, which is also the spring equinox. And that also had a big London drill a couple of days before. So these events are echoing each other in time, and you get the story of a mad driver who drives along Westminster Bridge. The fiendish fellow goes up onto the pavement, drives along on the pavement, mowing down all these helpless civilians, and then, wham, he goes into the side of the railings of Westminster House of Parliament, and then, so the whole front of the car is crumpled up. This might remind you of the Lee Rigby story. And then, undeterred, he leaps out with 2 knives. And this is, a crowded day. And he then rushes along, rushes around the corner. This is one of those crowded places in London and heavily policed. And he then goes into the House of Commons. Now, the idea that you can go in, I assure you, anyone who's been around the House of Commons, it's heavily policed. There's no way anyone can just go in. And then he starts stabbing a police officer. Poor fellow dies, and he is then shot, and that basically is the end of the drama.
Right. Now, I've covered the anomalies with the alleged perpetrator, Abu Izzadeen. He was the initial alleged perpetrator, who was then replaced by this guy, Khalid Massoud.
Khalid Massoud, right.
So I've actually gone through that. I'll put a link on the screen. You can watch the explanation of the anomalies with regards to that.
Yeah.
So do you want to make a quick comment on the fact that it looks like they've cocked up there with the actual perpetrator?
Yeah, well, this is a very important key to what happened. They gave an image of this guy who was still alive. He'd been shot several bullets. There he was, still alive, lying on a stretcher with an ambulance next to him. So they'd called an ambulance from the nearby St Thomas Hospital. There was no drop of blood anywhere. He must have waited 5 minutes for an ambulance, no drop of blood. There were 2 knives on the cobblestones not far from him, neither with any drop of blood on it. And that was the one picture was shown. Then that, as you point out, was similar to this fellow, the hate preacher from Hackney. And that went wrong because his brother then turned up and said, oh no, he's still in jail. So suddenly there was a flurry of activity, and the police or security agents went up to Birmingham and kicked in the door of Khalid Massoud, who's an English teacher, 52 years old, and with a family man, the next day it was announced that he'd done it. Okay, so he was then the villain. He then gets demonised, and I would say that is the one real death you've got in this whole saga. Right. He has to be bumped off. He has to be dead before he gets given the blame. All
right, that's pretty controversial, especially in relation to the police officer that was allegedly killed. Some people would say disrespectful. How do you reply to that?
Okay. You see, you don't see any face or image of the police officer as he's being killed. You see a big crowd of people around him. I mean, I may be wrong. He may have been killed, but you see a big crowd around him as he's allegedly dying. When you see his corpse, it's such that you can't see any face, which is kind of unusual. So I think we're entitled to be doubtful about that.
Right. So what you're saying is...
and also, sorry, let me just say, this MP was then given credit as a hero for trying to massage him, right? Yep, sure. The MP Tobias Elwood was then cast as a hero role for doing this pumping of the chest, trying to revive the heart of this police officer. Now, you really don't do that if someone's been shot in the chest. And there are a whole lot of qualified medical personnel standing around while he was doing this. Right. Now, medical personnel wouldn't stand around, let an MP do totally the wrong thing.
Can I just read this, Nick? Right, this is someone who's countered that argument. So let me just read this out. Yeah. Hi, Rich. I've just watched Nick Colostrom with his views on the Westminster attack. Let me assure you, it was 100% real. As a state-registered paramedic, I personally know many of the ambulance staff on scene, as seen in the press and TV news reports. Right. By the way, I have asked this chap if he can ask any of them to do any interviews with me or make statements, and I've had nothing back from that. Right. Yeah. So there's no first-hand account. Right. CPR was being done on the PC as a stopped heart takes a higher priority over a stab wound. It's that simple. Any CPR being done on a patient is better than no CPR. We let bystanders do CPR while we get kit out of various response bags. It don't just magically appear on the floor. It has to be opened, switched on, prepared. This takes a few seconds. So anyone on scene, CPR, we let them continue until we're ready to take the clinical lead over. Also, the perpetrator would be treated no different as we treat everyone the same. Hope this helps. Yeah. Right. Okay, well, let's leave it open, Richard. Right. That we've got a qualified person here saying that they think he really died. Right. I mean, I think we're entitled to doubt this. And when I first reported this event, I was told it was real, and I reported it as real. And you can hear the first debates I did. I was saying I thought people had really died on this event and were really in hospital, okay? And then more and more evidence came in, and the main thing that sways me is that all the way down Western Bridge, you get different types of dummies, rubber dummies, in various anatomically impossible positions. And people hanging over them or hovering over them who are looking like actors.
I think the whole thing looks like crisis actors and dummies all the way across Westminster Bridge.
I wouldn't state that you're wrong, Nick. I would state that it's, unless you can go and touch that dummy or person, you don't really know until you've examined it. So because other people let me put it this way: other people who've looked at the images say they're not dummies, they're bodies. So it's a matter of opinion rather than.
It is indeed. I mean, let's take the Aisha Afraid, which some people think is like, are you afraid? Her bum is sticking out from the back underneath the bus. Now, this is one of the first reported deaths. Initial RT reporting the event says there's 2 deaths. One is the policeman, and the other is this woman under the bus. So that absurd image of legs with black tights on, right, no shoes, all the shoes are taken off of these dead people and put beside them, no shoes, that image of someone in black tights protruding from the back of a bus as if 2 huge wheels of the bus have gone over her and her bum is quite undamaged, that I would say has to be a dummy. You can't have a human body without any bones broken, looking quite unsquashed. It would have blood all over the place if a real bus had gone over that. Now, I agree with you. Some people say that's real. That's a real person. And it is a matter of judgment, and I'll let viewers judge themselves if they think that can be real. You don't get any medical personnel coming. If it was a real body, they would have pulled her out, or they would have moved the bus on, for God's sake, in order to have a look at that body, pull it out, put it on the stretcher. That doesn't happen. The bus is not moved on. The bus is just empty. You see an empty bus, right? Where's everybody gone? Empty bus with this, that's just a stage prop, a rubber dummy put underneath the back wheel. And you see later pictures, all they've done, they put a sheet over that dummy. That's all they do. That's in the drama, all that happens.
You mentioned missing footwear, and you actually think that this is some symbolic or occultic thing where they've got 1 shoe or 1 sock missing, this sort of thing?
It's very prominent throughout this. The various dummies you see have had shoes taken off or socks taken off, like Khalid Masood lying on his stretcher. You see him with 1 shoe or sock taken off. And people surmise, is this Masonic? This is, after all, the 300 year of the birth of the Freemasons. And you get this rather dramatic and quite absurd bright red Freemason helicopter descending on the grass right in front of the House of Parliament 10 minutes after the event. You see the time from Big Ben.
I mean, one comment I would make to something like that is, has that just been put in there to give the conspiracy theorists something to talk about? I.e., we're going to have another audience to this event, i.e. conspiracy people, so let's give them something to be excited about. Do you see what I'm saying? It might be they're actually taking the piss with this rather than it being some serious, oh yes, we've got to use a Freemasonic helicopter. Do you know what I mean? A form of baiting, if you like. But let me read out some viewers' comments, Nick, and Nick, you can respond to them. Now, firstly, a comment on the Westminster Council CCTV cameras in London were axed in some months in June 2016, and a lot of people have commented on this. And the other,
why would you switch off all the CCTV on those high security areas in London in a time of high terror alert? I mean, why would you do that? And what possible cost saving is there?
The other observation that somebody has made is that there were a number of people on the London Eye who had cameras with them, and as far as I'm aware, no footage has been released from people who were on the London Eye.
That is very crucial, Richard. What happened to all those people on the London Eye? You'd expect journalists and police to be asking them, please show us what you saw. This is so important in your view. Instead, that London Eye gets frozen for 3 hours, so everyone gets the trauma of being immobile for 3 hours on the London Eye. Then you can see them being frisked one by one by the police and presumably taking the cameras off them as they go out. That is strong evidence for a fabricated event. I mean, I think there's quite a bit of evidence that the London buses and ambulances may have blocked off the Westminster Bridge before this thing happened, whatever did happen, so that ordinary traffic didn't go along it, and people on the Eye would have seen that.
Maybe they should rename it the London Shut Eye.
Poor.
Okay, here's another comment from a viewer. The man in the trolley who was alleged to have been shot has a white foot and a badly placed sock on the other. According to the internet, all the blood should go to the feet when just dead. It seems the guy was brought from a morgue.
Hang on, this is the alleged assassin, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, well, he wasn't dead. And I've got a witness here, somebody who was peering through the railings of the House of Commons, who saw his eyes wandering around in a quite nonchalant manner, while this was all going on. It's important that the reason the ambulance was next to him was that he was still alive. He's allegedly died in the ambulance.
This is who we suspect is Trevor Brooks.
Absolutely,
or
yeah,
Abu
yeah,
Izzadeen.
yeah.
Okay, another viewer comments, I've noticed something even more odd. There is a white van travelling right to left on the bridge. So this is the very, very distant shot of the bridge. And there's a question mark over where that was taken. I think there are videos on the internet revealing where people think it was taken, and it's some organisation linked to the media or whatever. Anyway, there is a white van travelling right to left on the bridge as the attacker is filmed driving left to right. The white van pulls a U-turn in the middle of Westminster Bridge during a terrorist attack, then appears to follow the attacker back down towards the palace. In fact, the white van appears to be passing traffic on the bridge in the same way that the attacker's car does, which makes it appear, in my opinion, as if this white van has also mounted the pavement. Were you aware of that at all?
No, I hadn't quite seen that. Let me just fill in that the only image we've got of this car allegedly on the pavement is from a long way away, some hotel some distance along the river that photographed this. And you see a little blurred image, you can't see what, moving along the bridge, and that's alleged to be the car on the pavement.
All right, here's another comment. The footage that I have showed you, this is a viewer that has sent me some footage. The footage that I have showed you has not been shown on TV, not that I have seen. If it has, it is darkened and zoomed to focus on the falling river lady and does not show the white van. So what he's saying is that what they've shown on TV is a cut down version of what he's talking about with this white van in the picture.
This is Andrea. We get these absurd stories to pull on your heartstrings. This lady Andrea comes over from Romania with her true love, and he's going to propose to her on the bridge on that day. But alas, she gets bumped off by the van and she falls over into the river and drowns. And you see a nice picture of Andrea posing the evening before, presumably. She's an evening pose. It's supposed to happen in the afternoon. That is another psyop. You get several stories of these enchanting couples who are on the bridge, and then, alas, one of them gets killed.
Right. This viewer says, if Westminster had its surveillance cameras turned off, then why did I get a traffic ticket in Conduit Street in the West End around the time of the terrorist incident in Westminster?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
All right. I don't understand why the 14-year-old in the photograph has Roundtree's chocolate-coloured skin, whilst the grown-up version of the terrorist has lighter-coloured tan. Is that usual? So this must be a photograph of Khalid Masood as a 14-year-old, and he's got very dark skin.
Right.
Another comment, and terrorists always have to be...
May I say, with this Khalid Masood, all his neighbours said he was a peaceful, easygoing fellow, the antithesis of a terrorist, family man, and you so often get this with the patsies who are used, that the locals cannot imagine him having any such concern or interest in politics. It doesn't make any sense to them at all, the guy they've actually known. The one trait in common is that he's known to MI5. That's the usual theme you find with these people.
And we'll come on to that as well. Terrorists always have to be shot dead so they can't be questioned, e.g. Iranian embassy siege, Lee Oswald, the Gibraltar terrorists, etc. Although I couldn't see any wound on this week's guy in today's stretcher photo. The TV news said he stayed in a hotel the night before and the same hotel the previous Friday. Was that to meet Peter Power?
Yeah, I agree we couldn't see any wound. He's supposedly been shot and you see his chest without the wounds. But I don't quite agree. The terrorists, the people working for the government, in a way, the secret state cannot kill off its own agents. It's important to appreciate this, otherwise nobody would work for them. But what is absolutely correct is that the patsy cannot speak afterwards. He's either put in jail forever, or he disappears, or he's shot dead. And the person you always want to talk to, ask what does he think he was doing, what happened, you never get to speak to them. For example, the Lee Rigby Adibalajo, he was supposedly put in jail, he's supposedly in jail now.
I mean, we were told he was given evidence via video link, I think, with that case.
Yeah. All that we can really say is that you don't ever get to talk to them. No journalist can ever speak to them.
Right. All right. He started off with a gun, but only had a knife to attack the policeman. Reminded me of that attack aboard a train in France a few years ago. The perp, armed up in the toilet, if memory serves, he had an AK-47 pistol and box cutter. He left the AK-47 in the toilet, shot someone with the pistol, then it jammed. So
Yeah,
luckily, four US soldiers then overpowered him as he reached for his knife.
Yeah, I don't think this guy started off with a gun. Gunshots were heard. It's important that on the bridge, if you ask witnesses in front of Parliament Square what they heard bangs going off, and then terrific crowds started rushing away from the bridge. So I suppose gunshots are used to scare the hell out of the crowd and get them running. Okay, but what comes out in the story, in Storyland, you initially have 2 suspects reported, Reuters News, 2 suspects reported in the car, and that then goes down to one lone nut. And he comes out brandishing the 2 knives. And that obviously reminds us of the Lee Rigby story where a car is allegedly crunched up in front of a big pole and you'd expect the driver to be badly wounded, but no, he leaps out with a huge axe and starts hacking to bits, you know, allegedly. So that story of a mad car driver crashing the car apparently works. You know, journalists believe it. And so it gets reused. Then it got reused again on the more recent London Bridge story, which we won't go into.
This viewer states, how come the copper has fallen nearer to the entrance than the assailant? If Khalid Masood sought to enter the building, why did he stab the copper, then head back towards the gate, only to turn round again and run to the armed security guard?
Yeah, that's a good point. You do see the alleged policeman lying down much nearer to the gate than the guy on the stretcher, and the 2 knives are next to the guy on the stretcher.
He also states that Sky News was lying about where these 2 incidents actually happened.
Where?
He's saying, attached picture illustrates my concern and also conveniently shows how Sky News was lying about where these 2 incidents actually happened. Okay. This viewer says, the same modus operandi as the Melbourne car attack a couple of months ago that has been totally exposed as a fake, just as the Munich truck attack was. The same modus operandi as the Nice truck attack just before.
Very good, yes, a very good point, yeah. And may I also add that Ole Dammergaard was discussing that Melbourne attack, which I haven't been into, and he used that to predict this Westminster Bridge was happened. And it's important that he intuitively was able to sense that he feels that they leave clues for you for what they're going to do next. And he did make a prediction about Westminster Bridge just coming up immediately before it happened. So I think your reader there is very right that there was an analogy of what happened in Melbourne with the car crash and then the Westminster Bridge, yeah.
Right.